Hello and welcome back to the channel. I appreciate you dropping in, and today's video is going to be a very interesting one. A couple of years ago, I covered a couple calls that were made from a very prominent family, the Murdaughs. I covered Paul Murdaugh's boating accident 911 call, and not long after that I covered his father's 911 call where he found Paul and his mother Maggie dead. This turned into one hell of a murder mystery. And I can now tell you court is over, so I'm going to go ahead and do an update for all of these stories. I'll play the 911 calls and whatnot, and then I will give updates as it goes. And this case is pretty damn wild. Well, both cases, because it technically is two different cases, but it's the same family and they somewhat tie together. But before we get into the video, if you are a fan of murder mysteries, well, today's video sponsor is right up your alley. June's Journey. June's Journey is a free-to-download mobile game where you find hidden objects to help solve a murder. Each level you'll find hidden clues, and that'll get you closer and closer to solving the murder. Download June's Journey today for free by clicking the link below in the description. It's available on Android and iOS mobile devices, as well as on PC through Facebook games. After playing the game for a while, I'm actually really enjoying it. It's something I've been having a lot of fun doing in my free time when I have a few minutes to kill, and I'm also curious about what's going on in the case. If you do get stuck and you can't find the object you're looking for, down in the corner they do have a button that's a hint feature and it will bring it up. But once you use it, it's gone for that turn. But here's a pro tip that we learned while playing. If you're looking for something and you don't know where it's at, zoom in some and move around the screen. You can see what you're looking for is highlighted. When it becomes unhighlighted, it's no longer on the screen. And on that note, if you're having issues seeing some of the minor details, you can zoom in just like you would on a regular smartphone. Once again, make sure to click the link below and download June's Journey for free. As you can see by this screenshot, I am number 1 on this level. Surprisingly, I was pretty proud to finally be first place on something in my life. Yes! I want to give a huge thank you to June's Journey for sponsoring this video. And without any further ado, let's get into this murder mystery. Paul Murdaugh took his 6 friends out on his father's boat on February 24th, 2019. They went to a house party together and drank on the way there. At midnight, when they were ready to leave, Paul suggested they visit a bar to drink some more. It was common for Paul to drink and get behind the wheel of a car, or in this case, a boat. Being the son of a well-known lawyer meant Paul thought he could get away with such things, and he often did. As if driving drunk wasn't bad enough, he was also under the legal drinking age while he did such things. On the night of February 24th, 2019, he used his brother's driver's license and his family credit card to buy alcohol. Paul entered the bar with his friend Connor, as they were the only two with fake IDs. After taking shots, they rejoined their friends close to where their boat was docked. It was now past 1 a.m., and Paul was acting rowdy. And when they all boarded the boat, Paul's friends could tell it wasn't safe for him to be behind the wheel. He was going around in circles and speeding. When his friends protested, he would let go of the wheel to argue back. When one of his friends, Anthony, asked to be let off, Paul refused. Paul was speeding down narrow passageways, where he eventually crashed the boat into Archer's Creek Bridge. That's when Anthony's girlfriend, Mallory Beach, who wasn't wearing a life jacket, fell into the water and was unable to be located. That's when Connor dialed 911.
Oh, what?
911, where's your emergency? Hello? Police, fire, EMS. Hello?
We're in a boat crash on Archer Street.
Whereabouts on Archer Street?
In Archer Street, the only bridge on Archer Street.
Archer Street?
Archer's Creek.
Archer's Creek. Archer's Creek. Is it?
Island.
Okay. What's going on?
It's by Perez Island.
Right. What's going on?
We're in a boat crash.
You know what kind of a
boat crash.
A boat? Did you say a boat crash?
A boat crash.
Okay, so you're at the dock? Hello, are you at the dock?
No, we just crashed in a boat.
Okay, are you in the water or are you...
We're in the boat.
Okay.
We have someone missing.
Okay. Hang on 1 second, okay?
All right, Bob. In Archer's Creek.
Archer's Creek, correct?
Paul, what is this? Paul, what is this bridge called?
Okay, how far...
Please send someone.
No, we're coming, okay? See, well, how far off shore are you?
In Archer's Creek.
Right, how far out?
There's only one bridge in Archer's Creek.
You're by the bridge?
There's only one bridge in Archer's Creek. Is this a mixed disabled boat?
Okay. And then, well, who's that in the background?
There's 6 of us and one is missing.
Okay, there's 6, but 1 is missing. So 6. Do you guys have life jackets on?
Yes, ma'am. We have more than enough life jackets, but we're on the bank.
So you're missing. Who's missing?
Female Mallory Beach is missing.
Okay. Where? Okay. What's your name, sir?
My name is Connor Cook.
When the police arrived, they had to calm Anthony down. He was beyond stressed out about Mallory. The deputy managed to get him to relax in a patrol car. And then Anthony saw Paul smiling at him in a provocative way. The police had to keep Anthony from getting his hands on Paul. When asked who was behind the wheel of the boat, Anthony said Paul was. The authorities took everyone except Anthony to the hospital. Anthony wanted to stay behind, most likely hopeful that Mallory would show up. Meanwhile, at the hospital, Paul was stubborn and refused to talk to the doctors. When the hospital staff tested his blood, he was 3 times over the legal limit. Paul's father, Alec Murdaugh, was also at the hospital, speaking to all the survivors of the crash. He was telling them not to reveal to law enforcement that his son was behind the accident. His plan was to pin it on Connor, who he also told to keep his mouth shut, and whose family would later sue Alec for this. The authorities searched for Mallory for 8 days. On March 3rd, volunteers came across her body 5 miles down the river from where Paul crashed the boat. Over a month later, Paul was charged for boating under the influence, as well as causing Mallory's death. He pleaded not guilty. And eventually the charges were dropped. And the reason they were dropped is actually covered in a previous video of mine. 2 years after this incident, Alec Murdaugh, the father, also an attorney, murdered both Paul and his wife. He had a very lengthy criminal record, from stealing company funds to insurance fraud and all kinds of different things. He had been getting away with his crimes for years. But finally, after the murder of Paul and his wife, he was charged with over 90 different crimes. And then not long after that, he tried to kill himself for a $10 million insurance claim for his last living son, and was caught there too and charged with insurance fraud. Alex Murdaugh is a well-known lawyer in South Carolina. Following in the footsteps of his father and grandfather, he works as a part-time prosecutor and has many convictions under his belt, many of them resulting in the death penalty. Hence, his family name carries a lot of influence. One of his sons, Paul, was on trial for crashing a boat and killing Mallory Beach, a 19-year-old. According to police reports, he was drunk and acting hostile when the accident happened. This tragedy occurred in 2019. 4 years before that, in 2015, another 19-year-old, Stephen Smith, was discovered about 15 miles away from Alex's hunting lodge. The death was ruled a hit and run, although there was no proof that a hit and run occurred. Investigators even discovered clear signs of foul play. On top of that, certain leads suggested Stephen was in a relationship with Alex's oldest son, Richard. In 2018, Alex's housekeeper, Gloria Satterfield, also passed away from a trip and fall. Alex settled in the case that followed from that tragedy. Unfortunately for Alex, the mysterious deaths surrounding his family would not end there. In June 2021, he returned home one day to find his wife Maggie and his son Paul shot execution style in dog kennels. He immediately picked up the phone and dialed 911.
County 911, where's your emergency?
This is Alex Murdaugh at 4147 Moselle Road. I need the police to ambulance immediately. My wife and child have been shot badly.
Okay, you said 4147 Moselle Road in Allison?
Sir?
You said 4147 Moselle Road in Allison?
Yes, sir. 4147 Moselle Road.
Stay on the line with me, okay? Yes, sir. Stay on the line with me, okay? Okay.
Colin County Communications.
Collison, I have an Alex Murdaugh on the line, caller from 4147 Moselle Road. He's advising that his wife and child was shot.
Okay, and sir, give me the address again.
It's 4147 Moselle Road. I've been up to it now. It's bad.
Okay. Okay, and are they breathing?
No, ma'am.
Okay, and you said it's your wife and your son?
My wife and my son.
Are they in a vehicle?
No, ma'am. They're on the ground out at my kennels.
Okay, and did you see anyone? Okay, is he breathing at all?
No, nobody.
Is she? Okay, do you see anything? Do you see anyone in the area?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am.
What color is your house on the outside? What color is your house on the outside?
It's white. You can't see it from the road.
Okay, is it a house or a mobile home?
It's a house.
Okay, and what is your name?
My name is Alex Murdaugh.
Okay, and did you hear anything, or did you come home and find them?
No, ma'am. I've been gone. I just came back.
Okay, and was anyone else supposed to be at your house?
No, ma'am. Please hurry.
We're getting somebody out there to you. Okay, what is her name?
Maggie and Paul.
Maggie is her name?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And please hurry.
We're getting somebody out there to you. Me asking you these questions, don't slow them down, okay? And you sure they're not breathing? Is he moving at all, your son? I know you said that she was shot, but what about your son?
Nobody's. They're not. Neither one of them's moving.
What is your telephone number? And does anything look out of place?
Ma'am, I not particularly, really, no, ma'am.
Okay.
Are they close, ma'am?
Yeah, they've been en route with you ever since you've got on the phone with me. I have multiple people coming out there to you. Okay. I don't want you to touch them at all, okay? I don't know if you've already touched them, but I don't want you to touch them just in case they can get any kind of evidence, okay?
I'd already touched them trying to get to see if they were breathing.
Okay. Well, I just don't want you to move anything just in case they can get any kind of evidence, okay?
Ma'am, I'm going to call. I need to call some of my family.
Okay.
On this.
Well, do me a favor for me. Whenever you see the officer or the medics, because they're all coming to you.
Absolutely.
Okay, but we have them come in, turn on the flashes on your vehicle so they can see you. Okay. You got the flashes on for me?
I do.
Okay. All right. Just whenever you see them.
Okay.
How old is your son?
22.
Okay. All right. We're getting them out there to you. Okay.
And I will answer if you call.
All right.
In the time that's passed since Alex's wife and son were found murdered, the authorities are no closer to figuring out what happened. At first, Alex himself was interviewed by investigators, but since he had an alibi, he is no longer a person of interest. Authorities collected evidence relating to the murders at a swamp miles away, and Maggie's phone was also found on a road close to the family's home where she was killed. But the reason for the murders and the culprits remain a mystery. Meanwhile, sources online claim that the killings have something to do with the deaths of either Mallory, Stephen, or Gloria. And since the writing of this script, there has been more updates I'm going to fill you in on right now. So now that you've listened to both of those 911 calls and the little backstory behind it, let's give some updates. I will say that in court, Alec kept calling his son Pawpaw or Paw Paw. I couldn't really tell the way he said it. He was always blabbering like a frickin' idiot. But he didn't mention him like that when he was doing interviews and whatnot. It was only in court. So it sounds to me like he was trying to garner sympathy with that. And not only that, the original story that he told police before he went to court is completely different from what he told when he was in court.
Did you have that tan blackout and a 12-gauge shotgun on that golf cart when you drove down there?
No.
You didn't?
No.
Did you see them when you were down there?
No.
No. So we got you back around 8:49 and you're leaving at 9:02, correct? And you didn't see any weapons down there. You just happened to be back there. You didn't hear anything at all. Did you hear anything at all, Mr. Murdaugh, during that time period?
No, I did not.
You didn't? Didn't you tell law enforcement that you thought you heard them pull up? Didn't you tell law enforcement that?
I did think they had pulled up.
All right, so that was that. You did think that?
Yes.
All right. So now you're saying there was a car pulling up?
No.
You didn't testify to that yesterday, did you, in your new version of events that
No, I don't.
construct?
Mr. Waters, I don't believe there was a car pulling up.
Okay. But that's what you told law enforcement, didn't you?
No, I told law enforcement that I thought they had pulled up.
Okay. All right. But you're saying you couldn't hear blackout shots supposedly, but you could hear that, correct?
I didn't say I couldn't hear blackout shots, but I'm saying that I thought when I got up from taking a nap, if I took a nap, but when I got up from laying down, as I was getting ready to go to my mom's, there was a point in time where I thought Maggie and Paul had come back.
You also told them that you thought you heard a wildcat, but maybe it was a person or something like that as well?
No, that's not what I said.
What did you say then?
I said when I went outside that there's a house cat that's gone wild, and he hangs around. He goes from hanging around the shop, goes from hanging around the house, different times. You might, and there'll be times you don't see him. And he had been around the house. And when I went outside, I believe that cat was over there.
Okay. And you made a point of mentioning that to law enforcement.
I never thought it was a person.
All right. But you made a point of mentioning that to law enforcement, correct?
In the course of discussing it, I did tell them that.
But you never told them all this new story that you've constructed in light of this trial, is that correct?
I did not tell them that I went to the kennel. I lied about that.
And at the same time, you also looked at this jury and tried to tell them that you had been cooperative in this investigation.
Other than lying to them about going to the kennel, I was cooperative in every aspect of this investigation.
He claims that his business partners told him not to talk without a lawyer, so that's why he decided to lie, rather than not speak at all. And this guy was a prosecutor for a while too, so this makes it even more baffling. Oh, and he was also addicted to pills, which might explain why he was licking his lips like a crackhead the entire time. He even admits to having pills in his pocket at the time when he found his wife and son murdered. When asked why he lied to authorities, He also said,
You continued lying after that night, did you not?
But once I lied, I continued to lie. Yes, sir.
Why?
You know, oh, what a tangled web we weave. But once I told the lie, I mean, I told my family.
Throughout the hours of court testimony, he admitted to stealing millions from his clients as well. Even on the years where his income, he was making a couple million. One of the big things he said in his initial interviews was he was not down at the kennels. But during court, that was proven to be a lie when they found a TikTok.
Get back. Get back. Quit, Cash. Come. Quit. It's okay. Come here. All right, man. Come here, Cash. Shit. Come here. Post it. Cash.
Hey, he's got a bird in his mouth.
Hey, Bubba.
That's a guinea.
This is a chicken.
Come here, Bubba.
Come here, Cash.
Come here, Bubba.
Cash. Quit.
He had gone down there and was taking a chicken out of one of his dog's mouths. That's the only way they found out he was down there. Well, minus a couple cell phone records as well, which I'll show here soon. But Alec admits that the story is new. He also admits to the lie about not being at the kennel. So then he changed his whole story to match the timeline that he had before court.
So you disagree this is a new story? You disagree with that characterization?
Yes, this is the first time that this is being told openly.
And you disagree to my characterization that you've got a photographic memory about the details that have to fit now that you know these facts, but you're fuzzy on the other stuff that complicates that. You disagree with that?
I do disagree with that. I think that I have a good memory about a lot of things on this.
When he left the kennel, he was going to go see his mother in another city. He claims that he told Paul and Maggie that he'd be back, but says that he doesn't remember his exact last conversation with Maggie, which is a bit odd because usually when someone you love dies, you do remember the last conversation you had.
And what did you do after that?
Got back on the golf cart.
And what did you do after that?
I left.
You left.
Now,
Just
did I
jumped
leave?
on the golf cart and left.
Well, that's what I was getting ready to say. Did I get on the golf cart and leave that second? Probably not. But did I get on the golf cart and leave very quickly after that? I did.
Okay, yeah, I think you testified yesterday. I got out of there.
I did.
Why'd you get out of there so quick, Mr. Murdaugh?
Because it was chaotic, it was hot, and I was getting ready to do exactly what I didn't want to do.
You were getting ready to do what you didn't want to do.
That's correct.
Yeah.
I was getting ready to sweat. I was getting ready to work. I went back to the air conditioner.
So did you say goodbye, according to your new story?
Did I say goodbye?
Yeah. Did you talk to them at all, or did you just get the chicken, put it on there, jump on there, and just take off?
I wouldn't have just gone off. I mean, I would have said, I'm leaving.
Okay.
Did I say goodbye or bye?
And again, go ahead.
I mean, there would have been some, there would have been some exchange. I'm not staying here.
Well, what was that exchange? I mean, you've had such a photographic memory about these new stories. What happened here?
That's not, I can't tell you the exact words.
You don't remember your conversation after you put that chicken up. Did y'all talk about the chicken?
No, I don't think we did.
Did you talk with Paul about Cash's tail?
After the chicken?
Yeah.
No, I know I didn't do that.
Did you tell Maggie I'm going to go check on him?
At that point, no, I don't
Did you
think
tell
I did.
Maggie, it's hot out here, if they gonna go back?
I certainly would have said something to that effect.
All right. So, unlike everything else with the new story, you just can't recall what that would have been.
Well, I mean, you're making that categorization. I think there's other things about that I can't remember. But if the question is, can I remember exactly what words I used when I gave Maggie some salutation when I'm leaving, I can't tell you what those were.
All right. Just like you don't remember, according to your new story, the last conversation you had with Maggie.
No, I remember having my last conversation with Maggie.
Alex also claimed that Paul wasn't there. But according to the records you're about to see, Paul was on the property according to his cell phone. Paul's cell phone shows him at the house, contradicting the claims that Alex made that he was at the shop.
And you would agree with me that about 8:38, Paul's phone shows him back up at the kennels.
Well, yes, sir. I agree that at 8:38. Let me see which one. It's hard for me to figure out which one of these rings, but at 8:38, it shows Paul in whichever one of those rings is 56 meters wide. And I have no reason to believe he wasn't at the kennel.
And then 8:44:55, we've already gone through this, but that's the kennel video, right?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
And you would agree with me that it lasts about 50 seconds, correct?
Yes, sir, I agree with that.
And you would agree with me, moving on to page 19, that both Maggie and Paul's phones locked for the final time around 8:49.
That's what the data shows.
After that, you agree that Maggie's phone around 8:53 shows some steps being taken?
That's what the data shows, yes, sir.
Data doesn't show who's carrying it, but that's what it shows. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All right. And then you would agree with me that from 9:02 to 9:06, your phone finally comes to life and starts showing a lot of steps.
I do agree with that.
What were you doing?
I was getting ready to go to my mom's house.
Getting ready to go? I thought you took a shower already. You were just laying down on the couch. What all you need to do to get ready to go to your mom's house?
I mean, there wasn't anything to get ready in that aspect, but I was getting ready to go. I was preparing to leave. I know what I wasn't doing, Mr. Waters, and what I wasn't doing is doing anything, as I believe you've implied, that I was cleaning off or washing off guns or putting guns in a raincoat, and I can promise you that I wasn't doing any of that.
Okay. Would you agree that that's the last steps recorded on your phone before 9:02 when you become a very busy bee?
If that's what these records show, I see I took steps, these records show I took steps between 8:05 and 8:09.
All right. So would you concede then that you're at the house around 8:09?
I would have thought so, yes.
Okay. And you said Paul was already back at that point?
No, I said just the opposite.
When did he get there?
All right. You talking about when I left the shop and went to the house when Maggie was there?
Yes, before you ate dinner.
No, as I said earlier, Paul and I were at the shop. Maggie got home. I left Paul at the shop and I went to the house. I think you were saying that I said I met Paul at the house, and that's incorrect.
Paul was still down at the shop when you were at the house, correct?
When I first went to the house, Paul was still at the shop, I believe.
All right. And was Maggie there when you arrived at the house?
Yes, I believe she was.
All right. And 8:09 is the last steps that you have on this phone before 9:02, correct?
That's what the data shows.
Your steps that you say when you got to the house is 8:09 and Paul was still down at the shop, but don't these records reflect that Paul is pinging with GPS data at the house at 8:08?
This record appears to show Paul at the house at 8:08.
Alex also claims that when Maggie came home, she left her phone in the SUV and always does that. Because I know everybody leaves their phone in the car all the time.
And when you got into the house, where did you go?
We've already discussed this. I took a shower. Whether I did things for a moment before I went to the shower, I'm sure I talked to Maggie because she'd been gone. And if she came through the kennel, which I believe she did, we only talked briefly, so I would have talked to her, but I would have quickly gone to take a shower.
You would agree with me that the data reflects Maggie start logging steps and her phone disconnecting from the Mercedes around 8:17, correct?
I agree. At 8:17, her phone ends connection to her Mercedes.
And starts logging steps.
I don't see that, but I don't dispute it.
Well, you see the purple line talking about it disconnecting from the Mercedes.
I
and
do
then if
see.
you go
I
down
see.
to-
I see where you're talking about. So yeah, I
Yeah.
see it. 8:17, her phone starts logging steps. I agree with that.
Okay. So would you concede that that appears to be when she arrived?
No, I don't believe that's when she arrived. I believe that. I mean, it was very normal for Maggie when she's driving to jump out of the car, run inside, go to the bathroom, do things, and either send me or Paul or go back, or Buster, or go back to her car herself and unplug her phone. So, I mean, I agree that's when her phone's unplugged, but I believe that Maggie got to the house a little bit before that. That's the whole reason why Paul and I went to the house.
The prosecutor does a decent job of asking a question and then just letting silence fill the air until Alex breaks, once again claiming that Paul wasn't in the house.
Okay. But you're saying Paul arrived after Maggie, is that what you're saying? At the house? at
I
this
believe
point in
so,
time?
yes, sir.
Okay.
That's what I recall. And Paul arrived at the house after I arrived at the house, I believe. And if Paul got to the house around about that same time, he wasn't inside with Maggie and I when I went to
8:08?
get to the shower.
So you say if Paul got, he wasn't inside with Maggie and you? Is that what you said? Mr. Murdaugh, is that what you said?
Sir,
You said if Paul got the house prior to that, he wasn't inside with you and Maggie? Is that what you said?
I'm saying he was not inside when I went to get in the shower.
Okay. But again, looking back at this data point, 8:08, we see a little blue dot right there in the middle of the house, don't we?
Yeah, that's what these records show.
Okay.
And it also shows that circle that folks testified to, what the range of what it could
Yeah, absolutely.
be within. So, I mean, it clearly could be.
Look at that circle. Look at what's right in the middle of that circle. Almost like somebody drew a circle around the house, don't you agree?
Yeah, I do. But also in that circle is where you would park a truck if you pulled up.
All right.
So, you know, and I'm not saying that he wasn't in the house at some point in time there. But when I went to get in the shower, he wasn't in the house.
After a little while, Maggie's phone starts tracking steps, and then some more steps, and then Alex's phone kicks to life as he's leaving for his mother's house. But before he left for his mother's house, you can see a lot of steps going around the house, and Alex's response goes as follows.
You were making all these phone calls while you were taking all these steps. Would you concede that? Where you don't remember what you were doing?
Well, I was making phone calls, and that shown here. At 9:05, I called my dad. You know, I don't know that I was taking steps like you're saying I'm taking steps. I heard the same testimony you heard, Mr. Waters, and, you know, steps can be recorded any number of ways. I don't have a specific recollection of walking around. I don't know if I was hitting my phone like the guy showed or doing whatever that makes steps, but, you know.
So you were hitting your phone like that while you were making all these phone calls?
Hang on, no, sir. What I'm saying, Mr. Waters, I don't know that. I'm just giving you an example. You're saying that I'm running around taking these steps, and while I'm doing that, I'm making telephone calls. What I will agree with is that this data shows that there was 283 steps recorded on my phone. And sometime during that period, I made certain phone calls.
Okay. All right, so not only, for whatever it is recording steps, but you're also making a ton of phone calls, including missed calls to Maggie, who is 1,100 feet away, supposedly.
You're using the term a ton of phone calls.
Yeah.
What I agree is that I made the phone calls that are listed on these call data records, which, you know, are very normal phone calls for me.
Alex also made a couple of missed calls to Maggie, and then might have deleted the phone calls not intentionally.
Do you know why so many phone calls were missing from the log around this relevant time period when law enforcement downloaded your phone on June 10th?
From my phone?
Yeah.
No, I don't.
Did you delete them, Mr. Murdaugh?
Not intentionally.
He claims he was worried about his wife and called her a lot within 4 minutes, but didn't go down to the kennels to check on her.
Why don't you remember what you were doing when you were so busy for this 4-minute critical period?
I do remember what I was doing.
Other than I was getting ready to go.
Well, because that's what I was doing.
You made those calls to Maggie in that 4-minute period. You had just seen them a few minutes ago when you say you went down there and came right back. Why didn't you just take that quick little left 1,100 yards away and stop by? See why they didn't answer the call. You're obviously wanting to get in touch with them. Why didn't you go down to the kennels that were so close by?
There was no reason to. I mean,
making multiple missed calls to Maggie, and she's so close. And there's a driveway right there. Why do you not just go down there and say, hey guys, I'm heading over there?
It wasn't important to do that. Me making those phone calls is simply me letting, I believe I called Maggie and I believe I called Paul, but that's simply me just letting them know that I'm leaving for a minute, I'll be back. The fact that they don't answer is not unusual at all. Now, it is odd, it is unusual that they never call me back. But at that moment, the fact that there's a missed call, when I know they're on the property, I mean, that doesn't even register at all. That's perfectly normal to try to call somebody who's on the property and not be able to get them. And as far as not going down there, there was no sense of urgency. Maggie was with Paul. You know, she should be as safe as she could be.
A crazy thing is that he was asking one of the witnesses, Miss Shelley, to say that he was there 20 minutes longer than he actually was. When he was seen by his house cleaner Blanca, she got nervous about the clothes that he was wearing, because there was blood on them. So he asked her not to mention the clothes that he was wearing.
And when you were asked by law enforcement how long you were at your mother's house, you said 45 minutes to an hour. Isn't that correct?
I think I said a couple of different things, but I think at one time I did say that. But, you know, routinely through these things, I kept saying, you know, when you get this data, you'll see exactly. When you look at my phone, you'll see exactly. When you do, you know, so, you know, me giving the times was always given with the thought that, okay, there's OnStar out there, there's whatever.
But when you had a conversation with Miss Shelley after the fact, you actually asked her to say that you were there longer than 20 minutes.
You know, I heard Shelley's testimony. I believe Shelley to be a good person. I wasn't trying to influence Shelley on any particular length of time because at the beginning of this, I believed that data would show what data would show. And for me to tell her to say something when my OnStar is going to show something different just doesn't make any sense. So, you know, I can't answer that. What my recollection is that I told Shelley that law enforcement would be talking to her. We may have discussed how long I was there. At that point in time, if I thought I was there 45 minutes, I may have said I was here 45 minutes, but, you know, I can't tell you.
All right. And that's the same thing that Blanca testified to, that you talked to her about the clothes that you were wearing. It made her uncomfortable, correct?
Ask that question again.
It's similar to your conversation with Blanca that she testified about when you talked to her about the clothes that you were supposedly wearing. And it made her feel uncomfortable. Do you remember that testimony, sir?
He was then asked if he went and looked at the bodies before calling 911, and it's found that he lied to police once again. And it's also great to note that when he was asked this question, his tears stopped on a dime.
I don't know what I said to law enforcement, Mr. Waters, but I can tell you this. When I pulled up and I saw Mags and Paw, I jumped out of that car. I know that I went back to my car and I called 911 as quickly as I could. That point in time, when I got on the phone, then is when I went to them.
You're saying that you didn't say very specifically to law enforcement that you went to them prior to calling 911?
When?
After you got out of the car, you told law enforcement repeatedly that you went over and checked the bodies before you called 911.
No, I don't. If I did say that, I don't believe that's accurate.
To show the vehicle parking at 10:05 and 55 seconds.
Yes, sir.
And 10:05:57, the Suburban arrives at the kennels. You agree with that?
I'm sorry, say that again, Mr. Waters.
At 10:05:57, it shows the Suburban arriving at the kennels.
Okay.
The 911 call was at 10:06:14,
Okay.
just about 20 seconds later. You agree with that?
I think that sounds right. Yes, sir. I mean, that makes sense. But that goes back to what I'm saying is I pulled up. I saw them, and I know I jumped out of my car. But I believe that before I checked them, in fact, I'm almost certain that then I went back and I got that's when I went and got my phone and I called 911.
Okay.
And then, after I called 911, there was a little while where there wasn't, I don't think there was anything going on. And I believe that is the time period that I went and checked on them.
I don't want to belabor this point, but what you're saying here today, now that we have this data, that's not exactly how you expressed it to law enforcement in your prior statements. Is that correct?
No, sir, I disagree with that.
Okay.
I totally disagree with that, Mr. Waters. Will you point to what you're talking about?
As I stated, I'm David Owen in Lower Rutland with Collin County. I'm misled. I hate to have to do this.
I understand.
Yeah.
I totally understand. Yeah. So you don't have any problem with it.
So just start at the top. Take your time.
Like when I came back here, I mean, I pulled up and I could see him, and I knew something was bad. I ran out. I knew it was really bad. And my boy over there, I could see it was. I'm sorry. And I could see his brain and I ran over to Maggie, and actually, I think I tried to turn Paul over first. I tried to turn him over, and I don't know, I figured it out. His cell phone popped out of his pocket. I started to try to do something with it, thinking maybe, but then I put it back down really quickly. Then I went to my wife, and I could see.
Did you touch Maggie at all?
I did. I touched them both.
Okay.
I tried to take
I mean, I tried to do it as limited as possible, but I tried to take their pulse on both of them. And, you know, I called 911 pretty much right away, and she was very good. I talked to her. I told her I was going to get off the phone to call some family members. I did that.
But going back to your question, I mean, that's the way I remember it, what I said right there. And you know, your question about did I do these things before I called 911, that's not what I said then, and that's not what I remember now.
Okay. So you're saying now that you went out, you checked, you came back, got your phone, and that's when you called 911?
I'm not saying that now, Mr. Woods. I am saying that now, but to me, that's what I said then. I mean, I told her, I called 911 right away. There was no time to do the things that I'm talking about doing in the time between getting there and calling 911.
He also claims that he thinks Paul and Maggie are dead because of the boat accident that Paul was in, but he says that it wasn't the people on the boat or their family, which leaves prosecutors puzzled.
Yeah, and just to be clear, Mr. Waters, there was never, ever a point in time where I thought that the people that were involved in the boat wreck did this to Paul and Maggie. Okay. I've never thought that.
All right. I never thought that, but it's literally one of the first things that you said out of the 911 call.
No, that's not what I said. I never, ever, ever under any point in time believed that those kids that were riding in that boat or their parents or their families, I didn't believe that any of the families, the people that were involved in the boat wreck had anything to do with hurting Maggie and Paul. Okay. But I can tell you that at that time, and as I sit here today, that I believe that boat wreck is the reason why Paul and Maggie were killed. Okay. And I'm certain, so I believe that.
It was random vigilantes, the 5-2 vigilantes, huh?
No, what I believe, Mr. Waters, is I believe that when Paul was charged criminally, there were so many leaks, half-truths, half-reports, half-statements, partial information, misrepresentations of Paul that ended up in the media all the time. And when I tell you the social media response that came from that was vile, the things that were said about what they would do to Paul, they were so over the top that nobody would believe anybody would get on social media and do that. But I believe then and I believe today that the wrong person saw and read that. Okay. Because I can tell you for a fact that the person or people who did what I saw on June the 7th, they hated Paul Murdaugh and they had anger in their heart. And that is the only reason that somebody could be mad at Paul like that and hate him like that.
Gotcha. All right, so we've got now.
But that's why I did then believe it was the boat wreck, and I believe now that the boat wreck had something to do with it.
All right, so we've got random vigilantes because of the boat wreck.
No, I don't know that they're random vigilantes.
Well, you just said it wasn't the family or the kid, or the kids or the family of the other kids in the boat, right? So you're saying it's somebody off of social media, and you don't have any evidence of that, do you? You just believe that. You're just telling that jury that as you try to explain the lie that you told for the first time yesterday. Isn't that right?
No, sir, that's not right.
It's not right. All right, well, let me ask you a question then. So what you're telling this jury is that it's a random vigilante
That's your
the
term.
12-year-old 5'2" people that just happened to know that Paul and Maggie were both at Moselle on June 7th, that knew that they would be at the kennels alone on June the 7th, that knew that you would not be there, but only between the times of 8:49 and 9:02, that they show up without a weapon, assuming that they're going to find weapons and ammunition there, that they commit this crime during that short time window, and then they travel the same exact route that you do around the same time to Alameda. That's what you're trying to tell this jury?
You got a lot of factors in there, Mr. Waters, all of which I do not agree with, but some of which I do.
Paul also admits to hiring a hitman against himself, where he only sustained a gunshot wound instead of being killed like the plan.
You testified yesterday about the side of the road?
Yeah, yes, sir.
And then you heard the testimony during the state's direct case about what you said on the 911 call? You heard that, didn't you?
I did hear that.
You heard the 911 call where you said you'd been attacked by an unknown assailant and described him?
I did.
And you saw the video from the ambulance where you said you'd been attacked by an unknown assailant and described him?
I did.
And you heard the testimony from Ryan Kelly where you again went in detail and described this attack from an unknown assailant?
I did.
And you heard the testimony about your interview on September 6th with law enforcement, in which you went into great detail and again described this unknown assailant?
I did.
And you heard the testimony, and in fact the image was put in, about how you sat down with a SLED sketch artist and spent a period of time with her going forward and creating an image of the supposed assailant.
I did sit down with her. I was in the hospital and they came in, sat down with me, asked me a bunch of questions. I answered their questions, and
yes, you did. You
it
sat
came
there.
it came up with a composite. Yes, sir.
Sat there and answered their questions just as effortlessly and convincingly as you've been trying to do for the past 2 days. Isn't that correct?
No, sir. That's not true. In that hospital, I couldn't sit still. I was standing up. I was walking around. I was using the bathroom with the lady sitting right there. I was 2 days into not taking, 3 days into not taking pills like I had been.
When accountability is at your door, Mr. Murdaugh, bad things happen. Isn't that true?
When accountability is at my doorstep,
go ahead.
Bad things happen. What do you mean by bad things?
June 7th happened. September 4th happened.
I don't believe that June the 7th happened because accountability issues were at my doorstep. Now, I do believe in September that I tried to get a man to help me kill myself because issues were at my doorstep.
And one of my personal favorite parts was when the prosecutor just started asking him, "Did you lie?" And I thought that was an extremely powerful moment. He was asking multiple questions. I'll show you the clip right here.
Mr. Murdaugh, are you a family annihilator?
A family annihilator? You mean like, did I shoot my wife and my son?
Yes.
No. I would never hurt Maggie Murdaugh. I would never hurt Paul Murdaugh under any circumstances.
You say that, but you lied to Maggie, didn't you?
I did lie to Maggie.
You lied to Paul?
Sometimes.
You lied to your father?
I'm sure I did at some point.
Did you tell him all the stuff you'd been up to over the years before he died?
No, I didn't tell him.
Did you lie to your brothers?
About financial things?
Yes.
I would have lied to Randy at some point, I'm sure.
Did you lie to him about the last time you saw your wife and son alive?
I did.
Did you lie to their wives?
I'm sure I did.
Did you lie to Marion Proctor?
Yes.
Did you lie to Bart Proctor?
Yes.
Did you lie to the Brandstetters?
Yes.
Did you lie to your best friend, Chris Wilson?
Probably.
Did you lie to your law partners?
I did.
Did you lie to them about the kennels?
Some of them.
Did you lie to Mark Ball?
Yeah, based on what Mark said, I believe I did.
Did you lie to Ronnie Crosby?
According to what he said, I believe I did.
Lied to everyone about the side of the road, the people that came to stop to help, and the ambulance folks, and the 911, and Ryan Kelly, and the composite sketch artist, and all of them, correct?
I lied to a lot of people about that.
You know why people lie, Mr. Murdaugh? Because they know they've done something wrong.
For the most time, I do.
When all was said and done, Alex was found guilty of murdering his wife and son. He was sentenced to 2 consecutive life sentences. And that's not including all the other charges of fraud and all that other stuff he did within his professional environment. While watching the court case, I came up with a few different things. 1, the courtroom is very cold. It was at like 66 degrees. Very random, I know. Another is, this guy is a disgusting talker. Holy crap. I had to mute many parts of his testimony because it sounded so disgusting. I initially was going to put a little compilation of it, but I decided not to. And obviously, another thing that I've noticed, dude is a frickin' sicko. You would have to be to murder your wife and son, but then to play it off like it was someone else and it only happened within the time span of you being gone for like 20-30 minutes. And not only that, he claimed that when he was at the kennel right before he left and he saw them both alive, the dogs were acting totally fine, no one was on the property. So within that time that he left to go to his parents' house and then comes back, they supposedly both got brutally murdered, with his cell phone somewhere on the property. This has been a case that I've been following for a long time, so it's great to see that he was actually found guilty because it was pretty obvious that the dude was guilty. I was afraid he was going to get away from it because of all his family ties of being an attorney, prosecutor, all that stuff. But fortunately, there was enough evidence to convict him, and he should never see the light of day again. Well, except for when he's in jail. Once again, I really do appreciate you dropping in to check out this video. And if you want to help support the channel and solve your own murder mystery, download June's Journey today. Click that link in the description, baby. So I hope you guys enjoyed this update. I had to find these calls that I covered. They were actually in different videos too. So I was able to find them, put it together so it'd be a compilation. And then I went through hours of watching this trial, making notes. I have an entire notepad with timestamps and all that stuff. So I'm hoping it kind of fills in the gaps for everyone. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will catch you in the next video. And just remember, it's always scarier if it's true. Bad bye.